Yeah. And so, but that's how I plan. And so for me, I'm not negotiating because the negotiations already happened. In the morning me wakes up and goes, okay, what are we doing today? Oh, we got a plan. Let's go. And I'm already locked in because I've hooked myself up. Like one of my core principles is, how do I make tomorrow easy today? Make tomorrow easy today. So the night me's going, man, what do I see coming in 3 days? That if I did a little tomorrow morning, I wouldn't be up against a crazy deadline. Like, how do I help future me? I'm constantly going, it's a month out. What do I see coming that I could do today that, like, by the time I get a month out, that month out person go, man, way to go. Like now now they're working together. Most people wake up in the morning and night me has screwed them. They stayed up till 1 a.m. watching YouTube, and morning me goes, oh, I had so much I needed to do. And night me's like, hey, I don't know what to tell you. And so you have to make peace within that war. So you would say negotiating. I would say there's a lot of you at war with each other. And if you can
war with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a ton of internal conflict where the same person that stayed up too late is the same person that has to get up in the morning.
Welcome to the Excellence Project. My name is Eric Worre. Today I've got Jon Acuff, and let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a New York Times bestselling author of 10 books, including his most recent, All It Takes Is a Goal. It's been published in dozens of languages. His work is both critically acclaimed and adored by readers. And when he's not writing, Acuff can be found on stage. He's one of Inc.'s top 100 leadership experts. He's spoken to hundreds of thousands of people at conferences, colleges, network marketing companies, and other companies around the world, including FedEx, Range Rover, Microsoft, Chick-fil-A, and Comedy Central. He's known for his insights wrapped in humor. Acuff shared the stage with an American icon when he opened up for Dolly Parton at the Ryman Auditorium. He lives outside of Nashville, Tennessee with his wife, Jenny, and 2 daughters. We talk about everything mindset in this podcast. We talk about the soundtracks in your head, how to reprogram your mind, and how to get your mind working for you instead of against you. I think you're going to like it a lot. So with no further ado, let's jump right into my conversation with Jon Acuff. Jon Acuff, how are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here. You're from Nashville, yeah?
Yeah.
How do you like Nashville?
Love it. It's weird when I come west and I meet people who haven't moved to Nashville yet.
Really?
Nashville's blowing up. Yeah, we love it. We've been there 14 years, and so it's become a home for us.
I lived there for about 90 days.
Okay.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
I started a small record label with a friend, and we had no hits. And
did you give yourself a window? Like, if we don't have a hit by 90, I don't know how to tell you this.
We had other
Music's a slow industry.
We had other businesses.
Okay.
And I had a childhood friend who was part of a Christian rock group that he had projects that he wanted to produce.
Yeah.
So me and another guy came in as investors, and we came down and, met everybody.
Sure.
And saw all the stuff. And,
Yeah.
It was an interesting time.
That's a quick turnaround.
Going to the Bluebird.
Oh, yeah.
Which saw some amazing talent.
Yep.
Go through that little joint.
Sure.
In Nashville.
Strip mall. It looks like nothing.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I haven't been there in ages, but anyway, yeah, some interesting stories through that whole experience. But anyway, great place to live. Great climate, great people,
great schools,
good taxes.
No income tax. That doesn't hurt my heart.
I know. It was like for us, it was there, here, Florida, Texas.
Yep.
Right? Those are the 4. Too many bugs, too much humidity in Florida. Texas, I'd been there and it was a little too gray and big concrete
It's
city.
hard to beat Vegas sun. You guys get a lot of sun.
I really enjoy it. I think this is a secret weapon here.
Yep.
And just like you think in Nashville, I think that those are the choices, right?
Yeah.
And Austin's another one. It's a little bohemian.
Yeah.
But the allergies destroy me. The cottonwoods or whatever they call it. Whatever.
Nashville's the same way. Like
really?
Nashville, the Native Americans had a term where it was like Valley of Death for how the allergies were. So
wow.
Yeah, Nashville's a hard one too. But I like Nashville. I like Vegas. I like spots where there's pockets of people doing cool stuff.
Yep.
Where like somebody the other day I was talking about saying, I think a lot of people can make $10,000 extra $100,000 a year if they do their goals right. And a friend said, you shouldn't say that publicly. That's not relatable. And I thought, but I'm not trying to help people be relatable. I'm trying to help them be remarkable.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you want to be around other people where you say, I think I could be on that hill. I think I could do this thing. I think I could scale this company. And they don't go, Why are you going to do that? That feels like a lot of work. You want other people that are going to go, you should do it.
There are places like that. I mean, like you go to Dubai, you've been to Dubai. If you go to Dubai is a very entrepreneurial city.
Yeah.
You go in there and there's money everywhere. It's
you
like
can just feel
it's
it.
like going to Monaco,
Yeah.
or it's like when you go to Washington, D.C. and you feel the power.
Oh, you can feel it crackling in D.C.
Yeah.
If you go to a restaurant,
You feel
there's
the
ambition on
power
the menu.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So Vegas is a small town, actually. There's the Strip and then, a couple suburbs. So it's a pretty small town. Everybody's nice.
Yep.
Everybody gets along.
Yeah.
It's all great. People aren't listening to this for geography, so I don't even know why I'm talking about all this.
It's Rand McNally.
Let's talk about your stuff.
Sure.
Your stuff. So you're a New York Times bestselling author, 10 books.
Yep.
The latest one is All It Takes Is a Goal. You didn't write a book or get paid to speak for the first 34 years of your life.
Yeah. That was a late bloomer.
So what were you doing in those first 34 years?
Yeah. Well, part of it was just trying to figure it out. I think we put a lot of pressure on 18-year-olds to say, hey, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I tell young men, especially all the time, a 50-year-old who tells you they knew exactly what they were going to do at 18 is a liar.
Right.
Like, go figure some stuff out, go take some risks. So part of it was figuring out what I wanted to do. But then I spent 15 years in corporate marketing. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was sharpening my writing skills. So I worked at Home Depot. I worked at Staples and Bose and all these massive brands that would say, write 20 headlines by 8 a.m. on a product you've never heard of. We got a newspaper ad that's going. And so it taught me how to communicate ideas. It taught me how to write a hook. And I fell in love with advertising. And so that's what I was career-wise was doing. And then the internet came on the scene and all of a sudden all the gatekeepers were gone. And I thought, wait a second, I can start a conversation with a lot of people around the world if I'm deliberate, if I'm intentional, if I'm consistent. I mean, for me, like to do what I did with blogs in the 60s, I would have needed a radio station.
Sure.
I couldn't have physically done it with podcasts too. So I just saw an opportunity when I was in my mid 30s and thought, I'm going to try this communication thing online and see what happens. And then things started to move from there.
What year was that?
If I was 34, it's 15 years ago.
So it's almost the same time I
Yeah,
got
2008,
involved.
2009.
2008,
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
Yeah. My story was I was, building in the field in the network marketing space. That's what I've done my whole life since I was 23. And I started seeing social media.
Yeah.
And like, this looks like it's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And at the time, Facebook was just for students.
You need a college address to sign up for.
Yep. And when they finally lifted that, I told my kids, I'm going to sign up for this page. And they were like, no, don't.
Yeah.
That's so cringy.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
That's
Don't
not
do
for
it.
dads.
If you do it, we're blocking you.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not
Yeah.
getting on. I'm like, nah, there's some money there. I'm gonna go check this out.
Totally.
So 2008, I'm just messing around with it, and then I've always been a big Jim Rohn fan.
Oh yeah.
And Jim was at this late stages of his life. He was sick and he didn't have much more time.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, gosh, if he had this as a tool,
Oh yeah.
what he could have left in the form of video content or
Because all we have is audio, and we've all gone
there's
through.
a little bit of video, but not like what can be done now, what a Joe Rogan or whoever can do now. So I asked around everywhere and I said, so who's really got the social media thing down? And Gary Vaynerchuk's name came up over and over and over. So I called Gary and he was working in his dad's wine store in New Jersey.
He still hadn't really blown up yet then.
He'd blown up,
Okay.
but he's doing it out of the wine store.
Yeah.
They'll call the Wine Library.
Yep.
And then he had Wine Library TV was his blog. And he would, low quality, do a wine tasting thing out of his office, getting paid not that much money to help his dad. He helped his dad grow from 3 million to 50 million or something in sales. It's a huge wine store. So I asked him for a couple hours of his time. I paid him $10,000 for 2 hours of his time.
Yep.
Flew out to New Jersey.
How much did you prepare for that conversation?
Not a lot.
Okay.
Not a lot. I had a very clear intention.
Yep.
He was getting like 80,000 views a day at the time of his just wine tasting.
Yep.
And he was the man in wine tasting, which was crazy for a young kid from New Jersey that was in love with the Jets.
Yeah.
So I just said, I would like to do in network marketing what you're doing in wine.
Yep.
You know, that's my world. That's what I've understood my whole life. I have unlimited content. So can you just reverse engineer what you've done?
Yep.
And I would like to do that. And this was February 2009. So I started 1 month later. I picked a date with my birthday in March. Mm-hmm. And I just said, I'm starting.
Yep.
So I told my little world I'm starting. And I did everything myself for like the first 5 years. You know, did like 250 episodes a year or something.
Nice.
And just built up a huge following, and it turned into all the stuff it turned into.
That's amazing.
But interesting that your timing was the same as my timing. Yeah. And when you tell your story, it reminds me a little bit of Ryan Holiday. Do you know much about Ryan?
Yeah.
That he was in the media business.
Yep.
One of his most interesting books is Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Yeah, that was his first big one.
Yeah, Confessions of a Media Manipulator.
And he was with American Apparel. Like, I had him on my podcast. His background's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's one of my favorite writers. I've written one book, which is embarrassing. I have 6 in my head that I have to get out. So you've written how many? 10?
10. Mm-hmm.
That's annoying.
Well, we're in your house.
I know.
Like, I drove up your hill.
Still annoying because
it's only going to get more
at you.
It's only going to get more annoying. I have to tell you. I've got the 11th one.
It's chewing me up, man.
I'm in the middle of the 11th one right now. I wrote it on the plane right here.
It's chewing me up. I've got to figure out a way to get them out of my head and into writing. I've tried probably 6 or 7 ghostwriters over the course of my life.
Sure.
And ended up saying thanks, no thanks.
Well, one of the things I say is 80% perfect and shared with the world changes 100% more lives than 100% perfect and stuck in your head. So right now, those 6 books you have are 100% perfect and stuck in your head. So like the 80%, like that's what you got to lean into.
You're killing me. Again, I have all my limiting beliefs. I have all my excuses.
Sure.
I'm so busy doing all this stuff. You know, if I wasn't doing this podcast, I could probably be writing.
Yeah.
You know, if I wasn't doing this or that, or if I didn't have this Zoom, if I didn't have that, if
Sure.
I had a clear, you know, if that was all I did was right, you know, then I could crank it out.
Yeah.
All stupid, all not true.
Well, all human. They don't have to be stupid. Like all human. Everybody has a version of that.
And I talked to all my friends, you know, John Maxwell, who's put out 85 books or something like that. He just writes every day.
Yeah.
Every day he writes something.
But here's what I would say. A trick for that is start listening to the advice you're giving other people because it's probably for you. Mm-hmm. So if you won't listen to your heart eventually uses your mouth and goes, we're going to show you the things you're saying are really for you. And we're going to try to get your ears involved. And so for me, there was a season in the last 5 years where I realized I was playing at a 4 out of 10 and it was time to level up some stuff. And I realized that because I kept telling other people, I think you can go bigger. I think you can go bigger. And eventually I had to admit that advice was for me and I hadn't been listening to it.
You teach best what you most need, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if you'll be self-aware enough to go, wait a second, every time I get into a dinner party, what happened for me is I started telling young people that I'd go, you have the one thing Warren Buffett would trade every dollar he has for. You have time. He would trade every nickel. You have time. And I would try to amp up these 26-year-olds, 27-year-olds. And occasionally they'd go with it. But a lot of times their eyes would glaze over and I'd go, no, I can see you're going to take the long way. Don't take the long way. I'll save you 10 years right now. And so I started to say that to 40-year-olds. And then I was like, wait a second. No, I'm talking to me. Let me go jump into it. Where am I holding back? Where am I hiding in what I'm doing?
Talk to me about your writing process. Like how do you write? Do you set time? Is it scheduled? Is
Dude, I'll tell you,
I'll
give you the secret to a best-selling idea. It's only 3 things.
I have 6 of them.
Yeah.
I just have to
here it is.
Schedule my way to do it.
Here, so one, you need a passion. You need to be really excited about the idea and willing to talk about it for years because you know you're going to talk about this for the rest of your life. The second thing is you find a need. You see people that actually need it. Neighbors, people that come into this podcast.
Have it.
Third thing is you find a hole in the marketplace and you go, where can I fit in? Like, has this already been overdone or is there a spot? I have
got all that. I'm talking about process.
Once you have all 3 of those, then I start to collect as many ideas as I can. And I just gather. I
have the ideas. I have all the stuff.
You have to connect them.
It's just figuring out what I want want to know is this.
Yeah.
Do you write in the morning?
Yep.
Do you write at night?
I write in the morning.
Do you write instead of working out? Because I work out when I get up in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, do you take weekends?
Dude,
and
I'll give you the
disappear and go somewhere and stare at the wall in a cabin in the
with a falcon
woods?
and a dog, like with a bandana on. Like
Yes.
that's the romantic picture. Here's what I do. I get up at about 5:45 a.m. and I used to be a night person. And then once you discover what you're capable of, you can't get up early enough. Like once your cup overflows, you just look for a bigger cup, and getting up earlier is a bigger cup. So I get up at about 5:45. I do a little reading. I do a little journaling. And then I write for 90 minutes and I use a timer, like 90 minutes. I'm using a timer. I know roughly where I'm going. I don't know exactly. I know roughly where I'm going. I take a break and work out in between. The workout is a reset of the ideas. I get the better ideas after I get the endorphins. So I set the table and then I say,
so 90 minutes of writing, then work out.
And then I'm processing the ideas while I'm working out. And I believe in bigger things when I have bigger motions in my body. So like when I'm running alone, I'm like, oh, I'm braver so I wrote a safe idea this morning. I need to amp that up by 10. When I get back, here's what I'm going to do. So I'm processing. I write for another 90 minutes, maybe even a crazy day is 4.5 hours. The average day is probably 3 hours. And then
day.
Yeah. And then I do meetings in the afternoon. And so
the morning's yours.
Morning's mine. I don't do breakfast meetings anymore.
Workout and writing.
No breakfast meetings, like it's too expensive. I try to give gold time to gold activities. And so when somebody go, I'd love to pick your brain at 9 a.m. I'm like, no, that's a really expensive hour. Like that's a writing hour. So for me, if I can protect those, and then I try to keep my schedule empty enough that I don't use it as an excuse. I use busy as an excuse. So if somebody goes, hey, I'd love to see, I go, oh, I'm so booked. I'd be such an amazing writer so I have to be honest with myself and clear the schedule, which is sometimes intimidating.
Yeah.
But that's what I do. But the thing for you, like I look at that, at what you're doing, it's easy to figure out in the sense of take what you're really good at and then carjack the things that are making you good at that. So if you said to me, Jon, here's the best part of my business. This part of my business, I'm humming. I would go, cool. What do you need to do that? What keeps you humming there? And you'd go, well, I got 3 great team members and they're fantastic. And I figured out a system because I spent 6 weeks figuring out the system and I've got all the tech I need and I would then go take those things and put them toward writing. So I'd say, okay, this part of your business works because you have 3 people. Who's doing the writing with you? And you'd probably go, well, I had 6 ghostwriters. I didn't like any of them. I go, no wonder you don't want to write. You're alone. You just told me you crush with people. You're isolated in writing.
I didn't though.
I
crush in speaking.
Yeah.
And I've learned that there's a little bit of a musical quality in writing.
That you like or don't like?
I like.
Okay.
That so if it's dissonant,
yeah,
then I get bothered.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is not about me.
I would try to solve the writing challenge or any challenge for somebody by going, what are you amazing right now? And then how do we take parts of that to the thing you're struggling with right now? Because people get really siloed where you meet people that go, I'm amazing at finances and I'm really out of shape.
Right.
And you go, well, what are you doing in finance? And they go, I'm in a Dave Ramsey group and I have envelopes and we meet and then I go, what are you doing for exercise? And they go, I got a Peloton and I try to make myself get streamed by a stranger alone. Like, well, this one you have community, add some community to that one.
Right.
If it was speaking, if you said I'm great at speaking, I would figure out what are the things that are making you great at speaking? And then how does a book kick out of that?
Right.
Not you have to go sit by yourself all alone and create a book.
I kind of do though.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, here's the sad thing. This book, the GoPro book, 5 million copies.
That's crazy.
Self-published.
Nobody does that.
I know.
But see, that's the other thing.
If I come up with another one, there's 5 million buyers.
Do you need to write another one?
Yes.
Tell me the name of James Clear's second book after Atomic Habits.
I have no idea.
There's not one.
But here's what I will tell you. There's a need for 6 other ones.
Yeah.
In my world.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get off of that. I've got to figure that out. I'm going to figure that out.
Next time I see you, maybe that other one will be on the shelf.
So let's talk about one of your books.
Yeah.
Soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
What is a soundtrack and why do you think that book has struck such a chord with people?
Well, soundtrack is just my phrase for repetitive thought. Your whole life is built on the soundtracks you're listening to internally. So you have a soundtrack for every job you've ever had, for every city you've lived in, for every person you've ever dated. And some people say a thought is a leaf on a river, cloud in the sky, car on the highway. For me, it's a soundtrack because a soundtrack has the power to change the entire moment, and you often don't even notice it's happening. So I'll give you an example.
And also, how many soundtracks are just the same thoughts every day that a person
over and
repeats
over and over.
It's like their greatest hits album.
Yeah. And the longer you listen to a certain thought, the more it gets added to your personal playlist.
Yeah.
And
So
you can
I'm sorry
call
to
it
interrupt.
up like that. So an example would be, there's a podcaster I know, Stephen Scoggins, and his dad used to say, Scoggins don't get ahead, Scoggins get by. And that growing up, his dad said that hundreds of times to him. So when he became a young man, he had to work on that soundtrack to get beyond the level of success his dad had established, which was just get by. And so that's what a soundtrack is. And what's been, you asked me, why is it done well? It's done well because it's a phrase everybody's comfortable with. If I named the book Inner Voices, men wouldn't have read it. I wrote a heart book disguised as a head book. And so what happens is people who might not go into the emotion of mindset go, oh yeah, I do have some broken soundtracks.
Or how to reprogram your mind.
Reprogram your mind. Yeah, if I went too holistic or too kind of like pseudo spiritual, there's a lot of people that would have gone, well, I'm in sales and I'm trying to kill it. I don't think this will help. But so framing it as a soundtrack gave everybody a chance to say, oh, I do have some broken soundtracks. I do have some things I want to change. And if I change them, what could I do? And then the framework everybody uses for mindset is great thoughts turn into great actions turn into great results. So for me, if you can kind of reverse engineer, like you said with Gary, and go, okay, here's the results you want. What are the thoughts that are going to drive those actions that are going to get those results? And a lot of leaders will over-focus on the result, but they never change the underlying thoughts and they never end up getting the result.
One of the things I tell people to do often as I'm coaching is just breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe, one, and get out of your head.
Yeah.
Stop overthinking, stop imagining ghosts around every corner and the boogeyman under your bed. Just follow some instruction, trust in the coaching.
Yep.
And there is a proven plan that will help you in order to be able to live a better life. But if you stay stuck in your head and you keep arguing and negotiating with yourself, one thing I learned is to stop negotiating with myself. When I find myself negotiating, well, should I do this? Do I have time? No. You said you're going to do it. Yeah. Go do it. Right. So this is another thing I'm telling myself to go do.
Well, the way I would do that, like one simple way is I think of night me and morning me. Night me is the decider. Morning me is the doer. If I wake up without a plan in the morning,
say that again.
Night me is the decider. Morning me is the doer. If I wake up in the morning without a plan, I feel overwhelmed by the amount of options.
When do you decide and how do you decide?
I decide.
Your wife's here in the studio with us. Do you guys sit there together and make this decision?
If it's family related,
hanging out.
If it's family related, definitely. But I find that I can make a lot of good decisions at night at around 7 p.m. because there's
after dinner.
After dinner, there's no phone ringing. There's nobody.
What's she doing?
Whatever she wants to do.
So you're up because our little routine is we'll have dinner about 6:30, and then maybe get a glass of wine or something. Yeah. Go outside. We got a big screen TV.
Yeah. We'll usually go on a walk. So we'll go on a walk. We'll process the day. I'll say, hey, what do the next 3 days look like for you?
In the back of your mind, you're thinking about what your next day is going to be.
No, I'm kind of working through with her, like a recap of her day, our day, the family's day. Our kids are out of the house. So, so it's not like we're in active parent mode. Like they're both at college. And so then I'll come back, and then like the way I think about it is, I know if I wake up in the morning without a plan, I'll lose time. I'll feel overwhelmed. I'll be scattered.
You have a lost day.
But if I wake up with a plan, I'm a great doer. Morning me is ready to go. And night me is a great decider.
What time do you go to bed?
I try to go to bed. Like, it's funny, my wife is here. I would go to bed at 9 if she was okay somebody was not trying to keep me up to 10. I love to get up early. So like I go to bed at 10, I would say on average. I get up at 5:45.
Okay. So you get 7 and a half hours or something of sleep.
Yeah. And so, but that's how I plan. And so for me, I'm not negotiating because the negotiation's already happened. In the morning me wakes up and goes, okay, what are we doing today? Oh, we got a plan. Let's go. And I'm already locked in because I've hooked myself up. Like one of my core principles is, how do I make tomorrow easy today? Make tomorrow easy today. So the night me's going, man, what do I see coming in 3 days? That if I did a little tomorrow morning, I wouldn't be up against a crazy deadline. Like, how do I help future me? I'm constantly going, it's a month out. What do I see coming that I could do today that, like, by the time I get a month out, that month out person go, man, way to go. Like now now they're working together. Most people wake up in the morning and night me has screwed them. They stayed up till 1 a.m. watching YouTube, and morning me goes, oh, I had so much I needed to do. And night me's like, hey, I don't know what to tell you. And so you have to make peace within that war. So you would say negotiating. I would say there's a lot of you at war with each other. And if you can
war with yourself.
Yeah. There's a ton of internal conflict where the same person that stayed up too late is the same person that has to get up in the morning. Right. And if you have kids, like one of the principles I learned from my wife when we had toddlers, and I remember it was one of our first Friday nights, I was like, hey, let's stay up and hang out. And she was like, just so we're clear, our toddlers will not respect Saturday morning. It's not Saturday morning to them. They're going to get up the same time they always get up. And so like, just so you know, and so I kind of think through like, I'm the same person that has to get up in the morning. There's consequences. Right. And so like, if I want to play at the level I really want to play at, that's where I started to change my night behavior, my morning behavior. And the thing that I tell people all the time is joy is the best alarm clock. Like I didn't wake up one day in 2008 and say, I think I'll be disciplined. I think I'll have grit and work hard. I found something I liked doing. And I thought, man, if I could throw more hours at this thing and really see how big this fire could get, what could happen? I didn't decide I'm going to watch less TV because that's the right thing to do. TV just started not giving me, it wasn't giving me anything. Like writing was giving me things, connecting with people was giving me things. Network marketing, all this stuff started to feed this idea. And I wanted to throw hours at it like logs in a fire. So that made me start to eliminate, this isn't a good conversation for me to have. This is the wrong task. If I plan 15 minutes at night, it gives me back 2 hours in my morning. Like that, the joy fed that. Most people, the mistake they make, I think, is they go, I got to find discipline. And I go, no. You find something that you care about more than staying stuck. And then you'll clear everything out of the way. Things you thought mattered the most. All of a sudden you're like, I'm going to put my phone at night into my office instead of my bedroom because I know what I do when it's right next to me. I look at videos that aren't feeding me. And so you just start to make better decisions because of the joy, not because of the discipline.
So I'll ask your wife.
Yeah.
What time would you go to bed if you had a choice?
I like 10 better than 9.
10 better than 9?
On the edge of a time zone.
An edge of a time zone?
Yeah.
10 better than 9. So you guys kind of negotiate. Sometimes it's 9, sometimes it's 10, whatever.
I would say mostly. We go to bed early. Her favorite thing is what I would call shoveling videos of people in Alaska shoveling snow or like chopping down trees. Something. I don't know if there's anyone who lives in Alaska who doesn't have a YouTube channel right now.
Right.
Everybody I feel like in Alaska is like, I moved here.
Isn't it weird how much you watch YouTube now versus television?
Oh yeah. It doesn't
or
even.
podcasts?
No, like they're like, it's
I go to bed with podcasts.
Yeah.
Almost all the time.
Totally.
We watched a couple of them last night. I mean, it's crazy.
Like if you said,
but my wife, she is like up late.
Yeah. What time do you get up?
I get up at 7.
Okay.
I read the 5 a.m. Club. Sharma's book.
Mark Wahlberg up at 2 a.m. Let's go.
I know. And
I like that you said it with kind of an apology. Like to be like, I get up at 7, dude. You're killing it.
And the only reason is because you look like a very fit guy.
Yeah.
have not been fit for most of my life. And 2 years ago, finally said enough is enough. I'm going to get fit. So my focus from 7 to 10 is all about fitness and starting my day. So I do red light therapy and I do the.
You're doing the Gary Brecka.
I do the sauna. I do the whole deal.
Yeah.
I do the cold plunge. Sure. I do weights and I do cardio. I shower.
Yeah.
And
are you collecting ideas at any point in this time?
Sure. Always collecting ideas. So that's been, my day starts at 11.
Yep.
Typically.
Sure.
And everybody's pulling at me in 1,000 directions, but 2 things have happened to me in the last, 3 things. One, I decided that I can't be the person that I think I am and have this body represent me anymore. So I've got to just get my
Yeah,
ass in shape.
Yeah.
So which has happened and it's still happening.
Yeah.
I'm in process.
Sure.
But I've made radical change. Anybody who
that's
saw me
great.
a couple of years ago saw me today. I'm in much better shape. Second is I've realized hanging out with some of these people, these billionaires and these very influential entrepreneurs, I've realized how small I've been playing my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
There's levels. And when you're big shot in your space, you sometimes can get seduced by that.
Oh yeah.
Without realizing you got to get in
Yeah.
some rooms where the room is so big that you just should be quiet.
Yeah.
Just be quiet. Don't say anything because you'll expose yourself.
Yeah.
You're in a big room.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. I can handle myself in lots of powerful situations, but I love coming home pissed off that they're thinking so much bigger than I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Wahlberg has like 14 businesses.
Yeah.
And he's a very busy guy and he's fit and all that stuff. He, and has a nice family and
has a wife who loves him and kids who love him.
Yeah. He'll go play around a golf at 5 a.m. and be done in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And another good friend is Rob Dyrdek. Ridiculousness. Have you ever seen that show?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So the host of that show is a good friend of mine. And he is the most disciplined guy I know in the world. In the world.
Yeah.
And he can't remember the last time he slept past 4 a.m. He said if he was forced to sleep past 4 a.m., he'd have anxiety.
Yeah.
Because he is so efficient.
Mm-hmm.
He records 330 episodes of Ridiculousness. It's a half-an-hour TV show per year.
That's crazy.
Guess what percentage of his time it takes?
How long?
4%.
4%?
So 330 episodes of broadcast television in 4% of his time. Everything is systemized, including time with his kids, including time with his wife, including time on vacation, including everything. Yeah. He can tell you how many minutes he slept in the last 3 years. He can tell you how many calories he's eaten. Yeah. He can tell you how many minutes he's taken at lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the most unrelatable at the same time inspiring person as far as how much you can get accomplished. I just want to jump in and say, I hope you're getting value from everything that we do at the Excellence Project. And if you do, make sure to follow us on all the social platforms. If you look up Eric Worre or the Excellence Project, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, everywhere where you get your content on social media. Find us over there. We'll continue the conversation. Back to the podcast.
I met somebody yesterday. I went to an Ed Milet and John Gordon event, and I was, and because you're right, you have to be in rooms where other people are going if you want to go too. And there was a guy I met, and we were talking about saving time and all these things we're doing. He had lasered off the hair on his face to save time shaving. And I was like, that's next level. Like, he made a list of things that take his time. And he's like, I hate shaving. I'm never going to grow a beard. He just went ahead. And I was like, that guy is, and I came home inspired, like, okay, where are ways I'm like, one that's really practical. This is so dorky, but when I fly, I noticed that I one day said, how much time does it take to actually take off from when I sit down in the seat to when I take off? So I timed it. I timed dozens of times. I'd sit down, I'd time it. It was on average like 32 minutes. And I realized if I fly 100 times a year and I actually plan that time, I just got 50 hours back. And if it takes me 500 hours to write a book, that's 1/10 of a book. And so now when I sit down on a plane, I'm not casually scrolling, because if you're not intentional, the time just disappears. And like, here's the thing, time's our most valuable resource, but it's also our most vulnerable. So time can't protect itself. It only knows how to do one thing, flow. It's our job to go in and say, wow, it's vulnerable. How do I put some boundaries around it and use it? Now, I wouldn't say I'm as detailed or as disciplined as Rob. For me, when it's family time, I'm trying to be off the clock in the sense, because I'll get compulsive and overdo it. Like, I knew I overdid it the other day. My wife said to me, hey, I've got to get my car from the mechanic. Can you take me? And I was like, I think I can fit you in on Thursday. Let's pencil that in. And that was the wrong answer, dude. That was she didn't want to be slotted into a 17-minute window.
Fair.
Where I was like, I've got you scheduled for family connection. We might even hold hands in 4 minutes. I can go too far. And so I'm always, as a dad, as a husband, I think a broken soundtrack that I used to have was that to be successful in business, you had to be unsuccessful at other things. But what happened for me is I got around men and women who love their kids,
who got it all,
who were billionaires, who were in shape, who had a faith that was fantastic, all the things that I would look up to. And I went, oh, so I had an old definition of what success, I had a broken definition of success. What could I do with a new one? If I learned some new soundtracks about success and I was connected to people, what could I do? Right.
Well, I beat myself up over not writing as much as I should. And that's a hill for me to conquer. But in other ways, I've compensated and I'm very prolific.
Yeah.
I put out a lot of material and I've been very consistent. And I'll tell you one of my secrets for time.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I learned this from 2 different billionaires. One of them, he was worth about $3 billion. He had 40 some companies that he managed.
Like an active role in.
Like he was chairman of the board.
Yeah.
Owner. So monthly he would oversee them. And I asked him a couple questions. I said, first of all, can you tell me how you delegate and how you figure this out? Which he gave me, piles of source material on exactly how he delegated. And second, he asked me a question. He said, how much do you want to make? And I said, wow.
Did you throw out a number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, I'd like to make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
He said, well, $1 million a year is about $500 an hour. Is there a task that would ultimately pay you $500 for that hour that you can do in your business? And in my business, there was.
Yeah.
If I was only focused on that.
Yeah.
Now, it wouldn't pay me in that hour, but eventually.
Yeah. It might pay you $10,000 and all the other hours.
Yes. Right. Eventually that hour would return at least 500.
Sure.
Right. He said, all right, it's very simple. Anything in your life that can be done for less than $500 an hour, you must have somebody else do. And then you invest the time doing the $500 an hour tasks. He said, other than personal life, bedtime stories, tucking kids in,
baseball games,
stuff that you want to do.
Yeah.
Anything else that's part of your identity? I said, well, he said, for example, do you mow your lawn? And I said, well, yeah. I said, he said, how much could you pay somebody to mow your lawn? And
it's less than $500 per time.
I said, I don't know, at the time, maybe $25, something like that.
Yeah.
He said, well, you're losing $475 every time you mow the lawn per hour.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow.
What were the hard ones to let go of?
Stuff that's your identity, I was pretty quick to let go of the handy stuff.
Yeah.
Most of my family members are handy.
Yeah. My wife has a degree in construction.
Things.
She has a master's degree in construction. Her dad builds homes. Her mom builds homes. My brother, guys come over our house and try to do something and they tell me and they see my eyes glazed over. And I'm like, I could
be handy. Yeah. I'm not handy.
No.
At all.
No.
And I choose not to be.
Yeah.
I call people.
Yeah. There's people who are great at that.
And they take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I call somebody who calls somebody who's handy.
I don't do my own dental. There's a lot of things I call people for.
Right. So literally, I don't put gas in my car.
Do you have a service come or did somebody go do it?
Somebody does it for me.
Yeah.
I don't wash the cars. I don't take the dog to the groomers. The groomers come to the dogs. Don't go to the grocery store. I don't go clothes shopping. They bring that stuff to me and I send back what I don't want. Literally, I don't do laundry. Yeah. Don't clean the house.
What identity stuff? Okay, handy's not so for me.
Well, like mowing the lawn or cleaning out the garage or I liked power washing the driveway and stuff like that.
Blowing some leaves, that's satisfying.
Yeah, satisfying stuff.
Yeah.
And you're part of the neighborhood. Whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm not that guy, and I stopped being that guy.
Yeah.
And I actually really did focus on my highest and best use in those hours. And I can still do better,
Sure.
but I will tell you that has served me. Now my number's very high.
Yeah.
By focusing on that, the million happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I mean, it kept going, and there's levels.
Yeah.
There's levels. I mean, there's some people to get an hour of their time, they're giving up a lot.
When did you first invest in knowledge? So like you mentioned, okay, I paid Gary Vee X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the levels. I think there's people like one of the things
People are time machines
where they
for
go,
sure.
okay, I'm going to pay this to get to this level because I see the knowledge has. When did you start investing in
First
knowledge?
one is I listened to an old audio cassette by Jim Rohn that was a bootleg audio copy from a Shackley convention.
Okay.
And it was called The Seed and the Sower. He was talking about the parable of the sower.
Dude, I've heard him do that bit. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, and you know what's funny? I'll tell you a side story about that. Years later, we were working together. Mm-hmm. And I asked him if he would do that talk. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, The Seed and the Sower.
Yeah.
He said, remind me. Yeah. And as a speaker now, I know that there's some bits that you move on from and you forget.
Yeah. It could be 10 years old too.
And he had forgotten.
Yeah.
I said, do you remember the sower had good seed?
Yeah.
And some got, and he kept planting. That's yeah. I got it.
Yeah.
So, so he goes out on stage to do it.
Funny.
But anyway, so I listened to that and he said, invest in yourself. So I started with books, which was very, very difficult for me.
Not a natural reader.
Well, you have to train yourself to read.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're forced to read as a kid, in school, you're like rebellious to it.
Yep.
So if I needed to go to sleep, I'd read. In 10 pages, I'd be zonked out.
Yep.
So he just said, start with 10 pages a day and pick something that's interesting to you. So I started down the path of reading. Right. But, so I wouldn't call that an investment. He said, if you want to have more, you have to become more. If you want to, live a better life, you have to become a better person.
Yeah.
So I remember putting together my budget when I was broke was $500 for the year. How can I spend that to invest in me?
Yep.
Other people were investing in college or whatever. I was just going to invest in me. So I bought an audio cassette album.
Yeah.
I bought, I attended an event, so I spent my 500, which was very difficult to do because there was times when I didn't think I was going to make rent. But I started at 500 and there's been years where I spent 500,000.
Yeah.
Because I realized that mentors, coaches, and masterminds are like time machines.
Oh yeah.
You walk into their proximity and you walk out 5 years smarter without being 5 years older.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And all you had to do is pay a little bit of money. And it's just like zip.
And now you have relationships.
Well, relationships too, but I'm just talking about the knowledge.
Yeah.
The shortcut. You don't have to go through the school of hard knocks. They already went through it.
Yeah.
They'll tell you how to get through it.
Yeah. Here's the pitfalls. Here's the traps.
So if I could pay Gary Vee $10,000 to build what we built.
Yeah. You had a pretty good deal. It's a pretty good deal.
Pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Our life is ridiculous now. Ridiculous. I mean, crazy talk. Yeah. Something that a minimum wage kid, 18 jobs by the time I was 23 would never have imagined.
No, if you try to describe it, no.
No way. Because I tried to do the math. I remember walking, there's a fancy neighborhood next to our house where we grew up. And we were not in a fancy house, just simple house. But I remember like how, because it's $1 million house. How?
Yeah.
At $20 an hour, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour.
Yeah. The math doesn't work.
How?
Yeah.
How many years until somebody can get that? Did somebody give them the money? I didn't understand how much you can grow in value, how valuable you could become as a person. I was still thinking in trading time for money.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like I didn't understand saving either, because if you're getting 2% interest,
Yeah,
like,
that also doesn't scale to that.
I like,
Yeah.
none of this is making sense. Somebody explain to me
Sure.
how you figured it out. Ultimately, I figured it out. That it was leverage, right?
Yeah.
Leverage and scale was the name of the game. But anyway, that's when I started 500 and slowly scaled up. And I still self-invest every time if I can get around powerful thinkers, that excites me. It really does.
See, that's all for me, I put a premium on thinking about 18 months ago where I realized I wasn't pursuing wisdom with enough of my calendar. So I just started to do it deliberately and I tracked it. So I did 60 hours last July. And then I was like, oh, I think I can increase this. And I did 100 hours.
How did that express itself?
So I made a list of things I thought were wise activities. So I'd go reading, interviewing people, working out is wise for my body. So I made a list of like 20 things. And then just with a timer, I started to track them. And then it became a game. And so the first year I did 1,253 hours. And then I was like, you know, if you believe the Malcolm Gladwell.
You are a little bit Rob Dyrdek, 1,253 hours.
Yeah. But if you believe the Malcolm Gladwell thing, then I was like 10,000 hours. That'll take me about 6 years to get to 10,000. If I live 40 more years, like I can get another one of those in. And then I started to notice I was making better decisions. And it was because I wasn't being casual about wisdom. Because if I really wanted to pursue it, and then it changed the people I interacted with and the conversations and the books I read. And now like people go, how do you read 100 books a year? And I'm like, well, I made wisdom a priority. And then it made every other part of my life better. And then I just started to invest in it, and you have more time than you think.
Do you read all nonfiction?
No, I'd say I do like 80-20, 80% nonfiction. 20.
I've got to go fiction, nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction.
Oh, I have to switch it. I would do fiction at night usually.
Yeah, because I mean, and I'll throw biography into the nonfiction stuff, but I have to have some fiction.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
To learn about people and personalities and
or places,
and stories.
I'm listening to a Minnesota series right now, which when I saw your helmet, I was like, oh man, it's about the Iron Lake and that region. I didn't know how many Native American tribes were there. And so, yeah, I do maybe 70-30. I can't do all. I eventually OD if I do too much.
Yeah, there's 5 steps to this, and there's 3 steps to that. And you realize in 2 chapters that you got the book.
Yeah. I figured it out and I go, okay.
They're just going to repeat for the next 14 chapters what they just laid out in the first 2 chapters.
Yeah. And so, but I also do like when I'm a very negative person by nature. So like
what does that mean?
I'm pessimistic. I'm cynical. I'm sarcastic. Like my base level is very sarcastic, very negative. But I just realized a big shift for me was the ROI for positivity is better than the ROI for negativity. And I just realized I make more money. I have more friends. I feel better physically, spiritually, mentally. So I just decided, okay, that's where I start. It's not where I stop. So I'm very deliberate every day about here's the 10 to 15 things I'm doing to elevate how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, how I'm behaving. And so once I tapped into that, I was like, oh, okay, and same with overthinking. Like I'm a naturally anxious person. And there were years where I'd wake up and I go, I must have failed again. I still feel anxious. And now I go,
did that come from childhood or something?
I think it came from biology. I'm sure like some was nature, nurture. Like there's probably a million reasons that I feel stressed, but I was just like, I'm going to turn this into something. Like, so when people go, how'd you write 10 books? I have 10 books worth of ideas in my head. Right. And I just decided they don't get to be fearful. How can I flip them? How can I change them? So when I get somebody, like that's part of why soundtracks work. I'm not coming to the topic as an outsider on a mountain who figured out something. And if you're anxious, maybe this will help you. I'm like, oh, you overthought that? I overthought that times 10. And here's what I did. Here's what I tried. And then like when I meet somebody who feels high stress, I go, oh, you're sitting on gold. Like you can turn that into gold. Like all that stress, all that frustration, you can flip that.
So did you self-diagnose all this?
In what sense?
As far as
I went to counseling.
Overthinking. No, as far as the negativity side, realizing that you could flip that.
Well, like what I realized was if you can worry, you can wonder.
Right.
If you can doubt, you can dare. If you can spin, you can soar. So the same brain that can tell 1,000 negative stories about something bad that could happen can tell the same amount of stories about something good that can happen.
It's a misuse of your imagination.
And it takes a while to get that muscle. But for me, once I started to do that, the sky was the limit because I had this rocket fuel. So it was either something that was going to blow up your life or something that was going to propel
Do you find
your life.
yourself backsliding every once in a while?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Of course,
Yeah,
every morning. Every morning.
Every morning, really?
I wake up and go, oh man, like I have some, like some negative thought, or and I go, oh, it's still there. Like, no, I don't. When somebody says to me, how do you get over fear? I say, I think over is the wrong word. It's how do you go through?
Mhm.
I don't get over it. I go through it. I don't think you should ever be fearless in the sense of, I want to have new fear at new levels because it means I'm stretching.
Exactly. 100%.
It means I'm growing.
You need to be in some uncomfortable rooms.
Yeah. And so for me, I look at it that way. And so when I see a negative thought, I go, okay, this is what I've been saying. Like even I have to write a book is negative. I get to write a book. I choose to write a book. This is book 11. This is going to help so many people. And this is, this person's going to be helped. And I'm going to get to see a foreign edition in a country I've never visited and somebody posted online. And so I'm really deliberate about that. Most people practice stress and practice fear and practice chaos. And then they go, it's weird that I feel stressful. So they'll say to me, Jon, I feel negative today. I go, well, tell me about your day. And they'll go, well, I got up late because I stayed up late, doing whatever. And then I drove to work and I listened to a podcast called People Who Look Like You Getting Murdered. It's my favorite podcast. And then I hung out with other people at work that hate their jobs. And then I came home and I got on Nextdoor and argued with neighbors about mailbox colors and coyotes. And then I fell asleep to a Netflix show called Brutal Unsolved Crimes in Your Neighborhood. Like I watched the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary. It's weird that I feel negative.
Yeah.
And I go, it's not weird. You're practicing it.
Mhm.
You're practicing it. And the good news is you can practice the opposite.
What is the attraction to that negative energy?
I think it's the fastest way.
People in love with serial killer, docuseries and
I personally think it's the fastest
violent crime, and
it's the fastest way to feel something. It's a shortcut to feeling something. The reason
just a dopamine hit fast,
doesn't cost you anything. Like I think I've said this before, there's a lot of anger online because there's no other outlet for that person. Like they have they're built for passion. They're built to build. They're built to create. And there's nowhere else they're doing that. Like happy, full, goal-seeking people don't have time for hate mail. Like they're too busy to get stuck in an election.
Right.
Like I got too much going on. It's too fun. Like there's too many people to help. There's too many new levels. Like I get to be your friend today. Like we've never been in the same room. Like
Right.
you're fun to connect with. So for me, I think if you don't have that, you still have the same amount of passion. But the problem is like an unopened gift doesn't stay a gift. It turns into a poison. Like an unopened gift mutates into bitterness and frustration. An unopened gift doesn't stay a gift. It turns into poison. And so when you're supposed to write a book and you don't, that doesn't disappear.
So solid.
So like, that's where,
it's like,
well, and that's
like, okay.
But
I got it.
It changes
I got it.
how you view people though. So when I
Yeah.
see somebody who's really mad or frustrated, I go, man, you got so much you could flip into something different. Like you must have a book or you must have a business or you must have a family you're supposed to start. Like, man, you got like, so when I look at people that are mad online, I'm like, oh man.
An unopened gift turns into a poison. That one will stick with me.
Oh, I appreciate that.
That one will stick with me. That's so good. I want to get back to overthinking.
Yeah.
Are you an introverted person
Yes.
or extroverted person?
Introverted.
And the way I define it is introverts kind of lose energy in a crowd. When the bright lights are on, they lose energy.
Yeah.
They gain energy by themselves. Like they recharge.
Sure.
It's not like they don't like people. They can be, I've trained myself to be situationally extroverted.
Yeah.
So I'll psych myself up.
Sure.
How long do I need to be psyched up?
Yeah. What's the time
How
frame?
long is the event?
Yeah,
when is it
yeah.
over? When is the day when I can stare at the wall with my legal pad or my journal or
Sure.
something and reset? And I get super annoyed if that gets extended into that time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
When I've planned like, no, that's going to be my sleep day
Yeah.
or whatever,
Sure.
to recharge my batteries. I do not understand the extroverted people that are just always on all the time.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I mean,
Sure.
if they're good conversationalists, I'll enjoy it, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it confuses me. But whether it's overthinking the writing of a book, or it's overthinking the building of a business, or should I do this or should I not do this, or what will happen if, and all this negotiation that goes on in your mind. I talk about a couple different things that maybe in different terms than what you use. I talk about giving yourself mental permission to do certain things. And then I talk about refusing to negotiate on whatever is sacred for you. Just don't negotiate on the sacred things.
Yep.
Non-negotiable. And we're good at tricking our own mind.
Oh yeah.
Into negotiating, overthinking.
You're the most persuasive person you've ever met.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
You have to think about it that way, because every bad decision you've ever made, first you talked yourself into it.
Yeah. So talk about how does somebody who gets stuck in their head and overthinking, how do they get out of it?
Well, let's give you a 30-second idea on how to identify if you have what I would say is a broken soundtrack. All you have to do is write down a goal, and it can be any goal. It can be, I want to write a book. I want to start a business. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to start a podcast. Write it down and then listen to your first thoughts. Every reaction is an education. You're educating yourself about what you really believe, your reaction to that. So is your reaction, you should do that. It's finally time to do that. People are going to love that. This business is people love network marketing, whatever. Like, are they positive? More than likely, they're going to be negative. Your brain's going to say, who are you to think you should do that? You're too young. You're too old. You don't have the skills. You don't have a big enough platform. You've never done that before. You tried it before and it didn't work. The hardest part of Diet 11 is the first 10 diets that didn't work. Because your brain goes, the minute you try to change your life, your brain goes, remember the Peloton? Remember the Bowmaster? Remember P90X? Remember the Thigh Master when we were all obsessed with thighs? Like, in Suzanne Summers is like, that's the key. We didn't even know the core existed. And so the first thing you do is identify what they are. And it's really easy. You don't have to go to a spiritual retreat for 90 days with a wolf in the silence. Like, write down a goal, listen to how you react to that goal. And then the process is 3 steps. It's you retire broken soundtracks. You replace them with new soundtracks. You repeat the new ones so often they become as automatic as the old ones. You just retire, you replace, you repeat. And so you identify some of those broken ones and say, okay, yeah, this is in my way for me to get to the next level. If I said this to a friend, they wouldn't want to still be my friend. Like, the broken ones are pretty obvious. People usually don't have a hard time coming up with the negative ones. They get stuck on the positive ones because they've never been taught how to think. Most people were never taught, you're in control of your mindset. You get to make that choice. Like,
how do you train somebody how to think? How do you help them?
That's super easy too. It's super easy. I'll go, the easiest way is I'll say, take out your calendar. Over the next 7 days, where do you want to win? Like, let's just talk about that. Where do you want to win? Next 7 days. And you might go, man, it's my wife's anniversary. I really want to, I've got a big client meeting. I got a negotiation. I go, where do you want to win? And you're going to notice every calendar has 2 parts in it, people and projects. That's all our calendars are, is people and projects. So I'd go, let's start with the people. What are the people in your life you need new soundtracks for? Because everybody watching this, listening to this, has a person in their phone that just seeing their name on a notification, they don't even have to read the text, sets off 50 broken soundtracks. And you're like, oh, here we go, Sheila. Like, your blood goes high. So you go, okay, I need a different soundtrack with this person. What's the soundtrack I need? What's going to help me? Because I work with them. You're going to work with, like, I used to always tell my daughters when they were in high school, they'd say, Dad, I can't wait till I'm out of high school and I don't have to do group projects with lazy people. And I'd go, oh, baby, I have some terrible news. Like, that lazy person, Chad, the sophomore in the future, graduate. He's your manager. Like, because he's really good at the game. And so I love to help people go, where do I need specific soundtracks for specific people situations? And then I go projects. So for me, network marketing too, like, when I did this exercise in my own business, I started my own business 11 years ago. I realized I needed to get better at sales. I had broken soundtracks about sales. And some of my broken soundtracks were, if you keep talking about it, people will be mad. If you keep sharing it all the time,
you're going to offend people.
You're going to offend people to say you're over promotional. And I had to stop and go, is that true? Am I mad when somebody sells me something I need or I want? And the truth is, I'm not. I'm excited. I'm thrilled. And so I had to come up with different soundtracks to encourage me to do the action of selling, to say, if I do this well, I'm serving a real need. If I do this well, I'm helping somebody. In the same way that when somebody tells me about something I need, I never go, no, I'm mad at you for telling me that. I go, no, I'm so grateful. Like, thank you for figuring out how to communicate. I really want that.
How do you remind yourself? Because, I mean, some of these habits are tough to kick.
Yeah.
How do you remind yourself? No. I gotta reprogram that. I gotta flip that.
Yeah,
on
that's
its
the
head.
third part. The third part is repeat. So where people get stuck there is 48 hours after the book came out, people would say, Jon, I tried retiring and I replaced them and it's not working. And I would go, well, the book came out 48 hours ago. So I know you haven't had a time to repeat. So like one of my soundtracks is never give the problem a year and the solution a week. So I'll meet people that'll say, Jon, this exercise plan is not working. I go, how long have you done it? And I go, 8 weeks. And I go, how long did it take you to gain the weight? I go, about 8 years. So you gave the problem 8 years to develop, but the solution only 8 weeks. Like it's never give the problem a year and the solution a week. So I am a big repeater. So there's, especially if it's a sticky soundtrack that I've had for a while, that, you know, like one of mine that I've really had to work on was I went through a crisis and I learned in that moment I can function in a crisis. That's a good soundtrack. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it mutated over time because the thoughts you don't work on tend to go negative because of negativity bias. So over time it changed from I can function in a crisis to I function best in a crisis. And then it mutated further into I need a crisis to function.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody listening to this has worked with somebody like that.
The power of a deadline, all that stuff.
If you work with somebody who's great at putting out fires, what happens when there's no fire? They start a fire. Now you work with an arsonist, not a leader. And so,
or they feel completely lost.
Yeah. And so what happened for me was I signed the biggest book contract I've ever had. And my wife pulled me aside and was like, hey, this isn't going to work. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, well, you're a jerk for the 2 years when you write a book and you're a jerk for the 2 years when you sell it. And she said, I'd rather you be a happy plumber than a miserable writer. And what she was saying was that the tools you learn to be successful are chaos, anxiety, stress, and they got us to a certain level. It's like a rocket booster. You eventually have to drop that part of the fuel because it's not stable. Once the rocket booster has done its job, you have to use a different type of fuel. And it's the same with performance. There's a lot of people that use, I got to prove myself. I got to be more successful than my dad. I got to figure out how to get that house, whatever. And that got you somewhere. Like it did. I never want to say it didn't get you somewhere, but anger as a long-term fuel isn't a good
bad
source
one.
of fuel. Proving yourself isn't either. Like trying to look a certain way to somebody who might not even be noticing you.
I have my favorite fuel. What's yours?
For me?
Yeah.
I mean, my family's a big fuel. Like
Yep.
for me, my family's a big fuel. My faith is a big fuel.
Yep.
Like, another one would be,
But does your faith fuel your business action?
well, my faith fuels everything.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
As an
Oh,
underlying
100%.
foundation.
Like one of mine is like, there's a parable about doubling the talents you were given.
Yep.
And so I'm a double guy. So I tell people, grab a shovel, you buried your gift. Like, let's go dig it out and let's double it. And there's going to be a party when you double it. It's not, well, you really should be a little more humble and not double stuff. Like there's a celebration. And so, yeah, I would say the faith fuels a lot of the things I think about with scaling and growing and leading and being brave and all these things. So those are probably the two that first come to mind. And then I just love watching an idea light somebody up. I still love the power of an idea in the same way that I loved it in advertising, where like you could say something that encouraged somebody to do, like you gave them a nudge, like if you frame the words the right way. And I've always been that way. Like I remember a billboard I saw for Range Rover and all it said was not a, the. And I was like, in 9 characters, they told a blue blood story of success. Like that triggered so many things. Like, and it moved me. And so I love the ability to move somebody with an idea. So I would say those are probably the 3. What would you say is your fuel?
It encompasses everything you said. Is in one word is contribution.
Yeah.
Contribution.
Yeah.
I'm most that fuel, accumulation, survival, proving something to someone, proving something to yourself, proving somebody right, proving other people wrong. All that stuff works for a short period.
Yeah. They're good short-term fuels.
Right. Somebody tells you you're going to fail, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that'll drive you to do things that you normally wouldn't do.
Yeah.
But getting your basic needs met. The reason why I think a lot of very successful people are unhappy, not all, but a good chunk, is because they stay in accumulation mode.
Yeah.
And it just becomes about more and more and more, and it gets emptier and emptier and emptier. You know, once your bills are paid, then you find out that there's not much purpose.
Yeah.
And you become cynical about everybody around you because everybody wants something.
Yeah.
Right. So the way to get out of that trap is to flip your accumulation into contribution.
Yeah.
And if you focus on contribution, it's endless fuel.
Yeah. Can I tell you my favorite definition of generosity?
Sure.
In this vein, I spoke at an event and I talked about building a Lego Porsche. I had built a 911 Lego set. And after the event, a couple came up to me, probably in their 50s, and they were like, hey, you mentioned the 9/11, like, and that's, something you love. We have one here at the hotel. Just take it for the night. Like, just take it for the night, bring it back tomorrow. And I was like, I can't take your 9/11. And they're like, no, we do it all the time. Just take it. And like, here's the valet ticket. And I was like, I can't take your car. And they said, we do it all the time because if we can't, it has too much power. They said, and that was such a fun version of generosity for me of like, if we can't share it, if we can't make it a contribution, like if we can't, enjoy it with a lot of people. And so, dude, they gave me their valet ticket. I went to the valet. He goes, what's the name on the reservation? I didn't even know. I go, he goes, it doesn't matter. He brings a port. It's a 911 turbo. I take it for the night. I call every friend I have and I'm like, I'm picking you up. Like we all go on joy rides. I bring it back the next day. And so for me, watching them, again, I had broken definitions of success that there were certain levels that if you got here, then meant you were greedy. It meant
you're an asshole.
You're a jerk. You can't your family hates you, whatever. And so being around people at different levels, changes your definition.
Or it's difficult for a rich person to get into heaven.
Oh, yeah. That's because people read half that verse. The second half of it is all things are possible with God. Right. So they read the first half, I'm like, man, I'm camels, dude. Camels and needles.
Right.
They don't, it's like anything else. If you pick and choose
and that doctrine got a little twisted in my head and it dealt with my self-worth issues for long time.
Yeah, because you'll start to, that's self-sabotage. Like if you have a false definition of what's okay, if you approach the max, you start to drill holes in your own boat.
Yeah. Talk to me about the vision wall.
So the vision wall is what people run into when they say, I got to change my life. I got to go for it. And they ask a lot of questions like, what do I want to be when I grow up? 10 years later, what's your big, crazy vision? We, in my opinion, have misinterpreted Stephen Covey's famous line, begin with the end in mind. And we've turned it into, until you know the end, you can't begin. In the same way that when you're walking around that neighborhood in Minnesota, if I had said to you, hey, here's where you're headed, like there's a house on a hill in Vegas, like you couldn't have fathomed it. And if I said, you have to be able to draw that perfectly before you take the first step, you'd be like, that's really intimidating. I don't know where I'm going to go. So there's a lot of people that think they have to know the exact vision before they get into motion. And so for me, it's I want you to have a big, far out, big, crazy thing that motivates you.
Forget about the how.
Yeah, like don't get stuck on that. Don't say,
don't overthink it again.
I need to know the last chapter of the book before I write the first few pages. And I go, okay, so a lot of people run into what I call the vision wall and they get stuck right there going, until I know my perfect dream, I can't change my life today.
The best moments list. What is the best moments list?
So what happens is if you can't go 30 years out, I encourage people to go 3 months back, 6 months back, 1 year back. We often say, don't look back, you're not going that way. And we leave a lot of wisdom in our past. So the best moments list, I was in the Augusta airport. I just spoken to the Augusta Chamber of Commerce. I felt like I was kind of stuck. And I said, I'm going to make a list of the things that light me up just in the last year.
Before you go any farther, did you make any friends that are members?
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Well, my wife's from Georgia, so I feel like everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. I haven't played it. I haven't.
You haven't?
No, I haven't.
I played 17 rounds.
17 rounds.
Yeah. My good friend, Harvey McKay, Harvey?
I know the name. I don't know.
How to Swim with the Sharks.
Yeah.
His best friend is Lou Holtz.
That's my best friend.
So, and Lou's a member.
17 rounds.
Can't play. I haven't been able to play for like 3 years because they're, Harvey's 92.
Yeah.
And Lou is 85 or something and pretty beat up, back surgeries and stuff. Can't really play.
That's funny.
So, I need some connections.
Yeah. So you need another Augusta. You need a new Lou Holtz?
I need a new Lou Holtz. And I'll give you a first round draft pick on me. Whatever you need.
New Lou Holtz.
Back to Augusta.
Yeah. So I made a list of the things that light me up. And I wrote down some really obvious ones like, man, my wedding day was amazing. Man, my kids being born. And then I wrote down some specific ones like being able to hold a book when I get it, when it comes, the first box you get in, it's a real thing, or seeing a client succeed. And so I wrote down, I thought.
Have you ever gotten the books when they're still warm?
No. Like I'd have to go to the place. That was the first
time I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's good.
This just happened.
Yeah.
That was at the advanced reader copy of the
that I got.
But.
Yeah. So like I just wrote down a list and I thought I'd write down 30, ended up writing down over 100. And then I noticed that there was a pattern, that every one of the items, in addition to kind of like teaching me self-awareness, gratefulness, mindfulness, like the list really helped me see things I appreciated. I realized they all fit into a couple buckets. Some were experiences, some were relationships, some were objects, and some were accomplishments. So I'll give you a breakdown of that. If you go on a hike by yourself, that's just an experience. If you go with a friend who's going through a divorce and you're able to pour into them, that's a relationship moment. If you pick up a pine cone from the top because you want to be reminded of the journey, that's an object. If you hike it faster than you've ever hiked it, that's an accomplishment. So I just went back through and labeled the list, and all of a sudden it felt like the most honest personality test. Because the challenge for me with most personality tests is I know what I think I should say. When they go, do you like helping people? Check A for yes, press B for you're mean. And I'm like, oh, I need to say this. And so like, I kind of fill it out the way I think I want to be versus this is who I really am. So then I organized it and I was shocked how many of mine were accomplishment based. Like, and it really challenged my definition of like, okay, success is bad. And I went, wow, I really am. I thrive on accomplishment. I noticed that the only 2 times I wrote skiing down was when I was by myself. I'm an introvert. Like my best ski days were when I was by myself at Deer Valley and I could just pile on runs. Like that was, and I tracked my vert, obviously, like, cause I'm a numbers guy. And so I started to kind of work through it. And then what happens is you go, I want more of this. You're no longer guessing about what you want to build in the future. Your life has said, hey, real quick, we're going to send you some flares. This is what you care about. And the reason you feel stuck is you stop doing a lot of these things. Like these are the relationships you mentioned. And then you notice things that aren't on it. All of a sudden you'll go, I didn't mention this person. I didn't mention this activity that's like chomping at my time. Why am I giving it? And so then I started to teach it, and I would tell people, give me 10, give me 30, and they'd give me 300. And so people started to go, I didn't realize I had left all these things in my past. And then what happens is you want more, and then you start to schedule them, and that's where goals come in hand. And it's a lot of fun versus trying to go, here's a blank piece of paper, guess where you'll be in 20 years. People, in my experience, get paralyzed by that
Kind
approach.
of figure out how you're wired. And where the holes are.
Yeah, and then what happens is if you look in the past, your brain automatically starts looking in the present. So it was the first time I ever asked my head and my heart to Google good things. They're really good at picking up mistakes, like going out of nowhere. Hey, remember 3 months ago when you said that dumb thing at the party and that person winced? Ooh, that was brutal. Or remember that time you said, this terror, and you go like, oh yeah, I did say that. Like I told a guy once, I still remember this. This was 15 years ago. He talked about an author of this book, and I was like, I didn't like that book. It wasn't that good. And then he rolls up his sleeve. He has a tattoo of that book on his arm. And I had just been like, that book. And I was like, ugh. That was 15 years ago. In random moments, my brain can call that up quickly.
Right.
Because again, negativity bias. One of the things I say is awesome never happens accidentally. Awesome never happens accidentally. I've never met somebody who accidentally got in shape, who said, yeah, I was just binge watching Netflix. I looked up, all of a sudden I was doing burpees. I don't even remember getting off the couch. Like awesome marriages never happen accidentally. And it's the same with your mindset. So the best moments list was another one of those tools. You can tell somebody all the time, be positive, be positive, be positive. They should say back to you, okay, how? Everybody goes, have an abundance mindset. And you go, okay, how? And they go, just feel it. And you're like, that's not tactical or practical. I have a real Tuesday I'm headed into that's going to be challenging. The best moments list was one of the many tools that if somebody says to me, I want to change my mindset, I go, ooh, watch out. This thing is and you're going to love filling it out, and it's going to grow every day. And then you're going to use it as a planning tool for next year, because you're going to go, man, I want 10 times this list.
Right.
How do and I have the permission to do it. And I have the ability to do it. And so that's what the best moments list was.
So you've spoken for a lot of network marketing companies. Yeah.
Yeah. Love them.
So tell me what you learned from that experience about this network marketing community of ours.
Dude, it's the best. It is. So there's audiences I have to wake up and convince them, you can do it. You can do it. And it takes me the first 15 minutes of me going like, hey, there's this world, and I'm painting a picture of the horizon. A network marketing audience is already sprinting, and they say to me, we dare you to keep up. Like, we're already going, dude. Like, what do you got that's new? What do you got? What kind of fuel are you going to throw on this? And they're already in motion. So for me, I feel like I'm shot out of a cannon. I don't have to wake up a single person in the room. And part of it is they want to be there. They don't have to be there. They want to be there, and that changes the complete tenor. So that's one of the first things I notice about a network marketing event is they want to be there. They're building businesses. They're working through fears. They're doing something that is uniquely hard in the sense that, unlike a lot of businesses, a relative who had a bad experience with a network marketing business will say, therefore, they're all bad. So they'll go, well, in 1982, I had a bad experience with Melaleuca. So therefore, and they never say that about cars. Nobody goes, well, in 1982, my car broke down on the side of the road. So from there on out, it was all horses. I just gave up on cars and so you're already doing something brave. Like that's the other thing. There's a level of bravery to do it. And then there's a community where you want other people to win. Like in healthy network marketing communities, there's so much trading of like, hey, I tried this and it worked. Hey, and I always say at networking marketing events, there's two events that happen. There's the one on stage and there's the one in the hall. And no offense to any other speaker. Usually the one in the hall is the better one because you're in real trenches. So I say to network marketers all the time, go to the event with a list of questions and take notes in the hall. Like not just in the conference room, you're around a living encyclopedia. And if you'll be humble and listen and ask questions and then contribute and go back and forth, you get a PhD every event. And so for me, like, yeah, I can't tell you, if this would be a 5-hour podcast if I tried to say everything I like about that industry and the people that are really good at it.
Yeah, I will tell you the thing that I is a not really widely known is that the network marketing is an excuse for people to come together and to grow. The economics that happen buys people time to be able to come and work on themselves. It's a grinding wheel that will mold you into something.
Well, and you've seen the same thing where somebody will go, I got into traveling vineyard or whatever, pick a name and you go, and I got in shape. And you go, but those things aren't related, but it's the discipline of that is contagious. Like
sometimes, I mean, I do believe that where I disagreed with Mr. Rohn, he said all disciplines affect every other discipline.
Who said that?
Jim Rohn. I disagree.
Yeah.
Because a person could have their finances in order and they can be totally out of shape. And it happens all the time.
Well, and I would say in that,
or they're a good entrepreneur and they're a terrible husband.
I think in that sense, they like, when I've seen it, they've been compulsive. They're not being disciplined. Right. I meet leaders who are compulsive and have moved beyond discipline and they're overdoing one area and they're anemic in the other.
Exactly.
So that's how I would go, well, you can build
or
something. Or
they've got blind spots.
Or they don't have people in their life who can tell them the truth.
Yeah. I've had people tell me the truth, like on my health, my whole life. Yeah. But I'm so rebellious to structured authority. Yeah. I'm so rebellious to what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. How did you trick yourself into it?
Projects.
Projects.
I treat everything like a project.
Yeah.
Like my project is to get under 15% body fat and under 1 pound of visceral fat. Yeah. That is it.
Yeah. Those are the two.
Those are the two things. And I don't want to lose my muscle mass.
Yeah.
So I got my muscle mass where it is.
Yeah.
I want to maintain that, get under 15% body fat and under 1 pound of visceral fat. And I started at 34% 2 years ago, body fat, and I'm like down to 21.
Man, that's great.
I started at 4.5 pounds of visceral fat.
Yeah.
Now I'm like at 2.7, something like that. So progress.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a lot of, I mean, you mentioned this earlier. And I forgot to say, I asked my trainer, who's in incredible shape, of course.
You better be an Adonis. You shouldn't be a broke financial planner.
And I say, so how long does it take for me to look like you?
Yeah.
And he's involved in network marketing. And he says, how long does it take for me to learn what you know about network marketing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went, shit.
Yeah.
Really?
That was honest.
It's going to be that long?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, come on, man. That's killing me.
That was honest. But I would say it's not automatic that it spreads to every part. But I think if you're disciplined versus compulsive, it has the ability to. Because if you see progress in one area of your life, it can create a curiosity.
But our whole world is compulsive, man. I'm telling you. I mean, this year is the first year that sports betting, people are spending more on sports betting than they are investing or saving.
I talked to an estate lawyer who said sports gambling is the new porn. He said, we're watching 100%. Men in their 20s bankrupt their parents because, well, you have to think about it.
Compulsive again.
Compulsive, but they also practice. They started doing fantasy football in 7th grade and they practiced for 5 years and then money got added to it.
They thought they were geniuses.
Yeah. And they thought, oh, I can beat the system or I can, and they're doing the dopamine. But then I also look at that and I go, man, that young man, that young woman, like if you could turn that into something.
You could apply that.
Yeah.
Apply that same discipline.
And you hope they can apply it without too much pain.
To a game where you control it. You're the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I learned to do. I learned to be the house.
Yeah.
Instead of let somebody else be the house.
Yeah. It's good.
Right.
It's good.
So, well, listen, this has been great. I appreciate you stopping by. If for somebody who wants to get started with your stuff, we'll put all of the links to everything that you have. Yeah. What's the first book that they should start with that you've written?
I'd go soundtracks.
Soundtracks first.
We did, there's a PhD named Mike Peasley. He's a professor in Nashville. We did a study before I wrote the book with 3,000 people and said, do you struggle with overthinking? And 99.5% of people said yes. So there's not a listener right now who's like, nah, I don't really. Everybody overthinks on something. So a really entry into the world of stuff that I write about is soundtracks.
Love that. And what's your like go-to keynote when it comes to network marketing?
Usually soundtracks.
Really?
Like, was now we're starting
how to change the soundtrack in their head so they can go out and have more
and
success?
teach your team and go like, what are the broken soundtracks? So like, I'm too busy as a broken soundtrack. How do we change that? Or I'm not a real entrepreneur. That's another one. And as if you get knighted somewhere and you go, well, you're running a business. Like it's like, if a writer who's written 3 books goes, I'm not a real writer, I go, I hate to break it to you. Your face is on these books.
Yeah.
It looks like you might be. So network marketers, what I found with soundtracks is they end up buying it for everybody because their entire community, and then they come up with a team and go, these are our 5. Often when I go, here's a soundtrack that's good, here's another one that's good, they go, hey, I got 3 more that we've been saying for a year. We have a bracelet. Like my team, the best teams aren't surprised that mindset matters. The best teams go, here's a new tool. Soundtracks will give me a different way to frame it. And dude, the other thing is it touches every part of your life because there's some ideas you do that are so niche. It's like they only help your business. Soundtracks, what happens is people go, man, my marriage has soundtracks. I want to change those. Yeah. And my health has soundtracks. I want to change those. Yeah. Soundtracks, when it came out, it was my 7th book, but it's the first time parents came out of the woodwork and said, do you have a version for teenagers? That's never happened to me before. 6 other books, nobody asked that, but parents came up and said, my teen is struggling. Like COVID really messed with my teen. Yeah. If they could figure out how to think about themselves now instead of later, it changed the whole arc of their life. And what I find is I'll get with a 45-year-old who's getting bigger opportunities to be a leader and they're pulling back and they're saying, well, I'm not a real leader. And if you pull the thread, you find out at 15, at 16, at 17, somebody in authority, a parent, a coach, a teacher said, you're not a natural leader. They believed it in the moment and they listened to that soundtrack for 30 years. And so parents are like, hey, can we change that? Like in Nashville, it's a 4 to 6 month wait for teen counseling. That's how many teens are desperate for teen counseling. Wow. And so when they finally say, I want help, we go, cool. We'll see you in 4 to 6 months. So I knew if I wrote that book, though, it would sound like an adult trying to sound cool. Like, hello, fellow youths. Like, don't crease the J's, like skibbity toilet, whatever. And I knew I couldn't do it, but I had 2 teenage daughters. And so the 3 of us wrote that book together. It's called Your New Playlist. And now high schools around the country are teaching it. Oh, that's great. So my goal, 30 years ago, we didn't give kids financial advice. We said, here's a credit card, try not to buy a jet ski. And then they wrecked their lives. And now every freshman in America gets a personal finance class. So I'd love to see in the future that every freshman in America has a mindset class. Love that. Because it's going to touch every part of their life. And often they learn it accidentally. And I'd rather they learn it at 15 and go, I get to choose these thoughts. I get to change my mindset. And my thoughts turn into my actions turn into my results. Like that, if you can get a 15-year-old to buy into that, Game over. Jon Acuff, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for having 2 dogs. I got to meet them both. That's what I would say thank you for. I appreciate it very much. I'm sure we're going to talk more. This is a to be continued. Yeah, start of a friendship. Yes. I'm going to read the book Soundtracks right away. I'd encourage our audience to do the same. And keep up the good work, will you? Thanks, man. I'll have you on my podcast. Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah. And I haven't been to Nashville in a while. Let's go. Maybe not day 91. We'll be hanging out with Jon Acuff. There we go. Awesome. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
So that's my conversation with Jon Acuff. I hope you got value from it. I hope you go into the show notes and get his book, check out his work, check out the different things that he does. Maybe even have him as a speaker at one of your companies. This is the type of information that can be life-changing. If you can change how you think, you can change everything in your life. Everything changed in my life when I changed how I thought about things. And he even challenged me in this podcast on how I'm thinking about some of the things that I'm doing even right now. So when somebody does that, I sit up and take notice because I talk to a lot of people. So if you got value from this, make sure you share this with somebody else. Help us spread the word. And until next time, go out there and make your life amazing. See you soon.